Bruce, you must have something really good too.
Of course I do. It's Bruce Danielson, and I guess I'm here to entertain you too.
Welcome. I call this Monday, September 28th, 2020 Audit Committee meeting to order. First item on the agenda is the approval of minutes. May I have a request?
Move approval, Neitzer.
Or a motion, rather. Motion by Neitzer. A second?
Second, Bucknerberg.
And a second by Dean Bucknerberg. And we will do, with members on the phone, we will do a roll call vote. So, Mr. Clerk.
Committee members Bucknerberg.
Yes.
Gutsch. Yes. Grant.
Yes.
Jensen. Yes. Kiley.
Yes.
Neitzer.
Yes.
Sale.
Okay, very good. We will go to our next item, which is item number 3, reports and updates. And the first item, A, audit report 19-02, employee payroll deductions, will be presented by our internal auditor, Abby Lanati. Abby, go ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Abby Lanati presenting the employee payroll deductions audit. Just as a reminder, you did receive the full report on Friday. And as another reminder for anybody looking for the report, it can be accessed on the City of Sioux Falls website. We have the highlights page up on the screen to go through the presentation. The purpose of this audit was to review the employee payroll deductions and the policies and procedures over the employee payroll deductions to ensure internal controls are in place and functioning appropriately. The audit focused on employee payroll deductions, payments made to after payroll vendors, and the reconciliation process. Voluntary deductions are deductions that employees have the option to elect to participate in, such as health benefits, dental benefits, or charitable contributions. This audit focuses on voluntary payroll deductions. This audit does not include an in-depth review or analysis of mandatory employee payroll deductions, such as taxes, as this will be addressed in a separate audit. This audit also did not include a review of SDRS, the South Dakota Retirement System deductions, as these deductions were a primary focus of the 2018 Eide Bailly external audit that was performed. In addition to health and dental benefits, employees have the option to participate in several voluntary deduction programs. These types of voluntary deductions include deferred compensation, union dues, vision insurance, charitable contribution or charitable donations, third-party insurance, and flexible spending accounts. The Human Resources, Information Technology, and Finance departments have primary responsibility for payroll processing functions. In calendar year 2019, the payroll voluntary employee deductions totaled $10.8 million. Of the 1,213 total employees in 2019, over 1,100 employees participated in at least one of the voluntary deductions that were included in the scope of this audit. Our objectives were to, 1, determine if payroll deductions are properly authorized and calculations are accurate. 2, determine if proper internal controls are in place to ensure payroll deductions are submitted timely and accurately to the appropriate third party. And 3, to determine if an accurate and timely reconciliation is prepared between the payroll account and the general ledger. The scope of this audit included a review of voluntary payroll deductions, current system access, and policies and procedures as they are currently in place. The detailed testing of transactions covered the 12-month period of October 1st, 2018 through September 30th, 2019. We verified that the amounts deducted on checks matched what was authorized in the payroll system. We verified that the deductions appearing on payroll checks were legitimate by comparing to the master vendor file. And we also verified that appropriate payroll correction paperwork was on file for any deduction or deduction amount other than what was originally authorized by the employee. We looked at employee payroll corrections for the testing period and verified the following. One, that the amount of the payroll correction, on the payroll correction form matched what was deducted on the check. Two, that appropriate supporting documentation was on file for changes to deductions. And three, proper authorization was received for these corrections. We also determined that payroll checks do have the required deductions taken out of their checks per regulations. We also determined that payments made to vendors are made timely and are issued to the correct vendor and are mathematically accurate based on our testing. Additionally, regular reconciliations are performed to ensure accuracy. We determined that system access is appropriate and is limited to only those employees who require it to complete their job duties. In addition, segregation of duties are in place so that no one person has complete and total control of the entire employee administration process, payroll process, or vendor process. Proper review takes place and supporting documentation is validated and saved accordingly. We also determined that an accurate reconciliation is completed between the bank account and the general ledger on a monthly basis. We did have one audit finding. We reviewed the after payroll vendors in the master file and determined that ACH and W-9 forms are on file for all but 7 vendors. One new vendor did not fill out an ACH form upon agreement to conduct business with the city, which should have been required by the finance department. To address this finding, we made the following recommendation. We recommend that management ensure that ACH forms are completed, signed, and kept on file for all vendors that the city of Sioux Falls issues payment to electronically. We received a response from management, which is as follows. There are currently 7 after payroll vendors that are set up in our vendor file. We were able to locate the ACH paperwork for 4 of these vendors that was filed and stored in the vault from our previous financial system. We did not electronically attach this paperwork to the new vendor set up in Munis. 2 of the after payroll vendors we did not receive ACH paperwork from. Rather, the information was just emailed to us from Human Resources to set up the vendor. 1 after payroll vendor is no longer active. We will reach out immediately to the remaining 6 active payroll vendors and obtain their W-9 and ACH paperwork and electronically attach it to their current vendor file. The date of expected implementation is May 1st, 2020. We also identified a potential opportunity through doing this audit. During our planning and testing of this audit, it was determined that the health and dental deductions and the process relating to health and dental deductions would be best suited for a detailed audit of its own. This would allow for intentional focus specifically on the details involving all aspects surrounding the health and dental deductions, contracts, and accounts. We would suggest that this audit be considered to be included in a future annual audit plan. To conclude, we determined that adequate controls exist over the employee payroll deduction process that is overseen by the city's Human Resources Department. Appropriate authorization and documentation is being obtained and filed adequately. Based upon our testing, we did not identify any fraudulent or erroneous deductions or unauthorized transactions. The recommendation above will provide additional assurance to mitigate the risk of potential fraud in regard to ACH transactions. We'd like to thank the Human Resources, Finance, and Information Technology departments for their assistance provided during this audit. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you very much, Abby. Any questions for Abby or comments at this time? Councilor Neitzer.
2 questions. The first is, and this isn't necessarily directly related to an audit, but just out of curiosity, as it relates to charitable deductions, does the city provide a menu, or is it just the United Way, or?
I would have to look at my list, but I believe it's just the United Way.
Okay. And then if I want to make a change and I'm a city employee, do I have to use ESS? Is that how it happens? How do I elect for these?
Yep, ESS, and then as far as some of the deductions like health, dental, flex spending, that has to be done through open enrollment, which is done through ESS, and requires a qualifying event and so forth. But otherwise, any changes to like deferred comp, you would go through Insight to make those changes and so forth, and then provide your documentation for those changes, what you want changed.
And so that's how they know that it was you that really requested it, because you're logged in and you do it electronically.
Right.
Okay,
Yep.
thanks.
Any other questions? Dean, do you have a question online?
No, I think it's all pretty clear. I think it's well organized and very understandable. I think I agree with her idea about a future opportunity on the health and dental deductions when we get to that. But I don't have any questions on the audit itself.
Okay, very good, thank you. And this is an item that we should approve, so do I have a motion to approve?
So moved, Jensen.
So moved.
Second, Grant.
Okay.
All set.
We'll go, moved by Jensen and seconded by Mr. Bucknerberg on the phone. It's hard to get in on the phone, so good job, Dean. Okay, a roll call vote.
Okay, committee members Bucknerberg,
Yes.
Gotch? Yes. Grant?
Yes.
Jensen? Yes. Kylie?
Yes?
Neitzer?
Yes.
Okay, that passes unanimously. Okay, we're on to item B on the agenda, 3B, follow-up audit 20-01, purchasing card program, and Abby, our internal auditor, is going to present on that one as well.
Thank you. The purchasing card audit was completed and presented in 2019. The purpose of the follow-up audit is to report on the status of the recommendations that were made in the original audit. The original full report can be accessed on the City of Sioux Falls website as well. To go through the recommendations, our first recommendation was we had recommended that both initial and ongoing training is provided consistently to all card holders who are issued a City of Sioux Falls purchasing card in their name. The purchasing card program guide states training will be provided by the program administrator. We recommend trainings be documented and filed as proof that cardholders did in fact attend required training. Management had responded that they agree and will utilize Target Solutions, which is a training and tracking software, to develop a training program for cardholders once the software is purchased. In the meantime, the city will relocate the training records into a centralized electronic file to track the cardholder training. To report on the status, it's partially implemented. Target Solutions is slated to go live citywide during Q3 of 2020. So we did confirm that it is a few months out yet from being implemented. Further follow-up will occur after Q3, so sometime this next quarter, we will follow up with finance to see where they're at with Target Solutions. Second recommendation was based on our observations with purchasing card allocators. We had determined that 2 individuals who have access to credit card allocations in the financial system who also have a City of Sioux Falls purchasing card in their name are allocating their own purchasing card transactions. This was further verified through reviewing the purchasing card transactions for the individuals with reallocation access in Munis. Management had agreed, and the recommendation was already addressed at the time that this was presented. So the status is considered implemented. We did do further testing and did a sample of transactions for the employees that have reallocation access as well as a purchasing card in their name. And it was determined through that additional testing that appropriate segregation of duties are in place and no employee with reallocation access is reallocating their own purchases in Munis since this recommendation was put in place. The 2 employees who had been previously reallocating their own purchases were no longer doing so. The third recommendation was based on our review of internal policies and procedures as well as discussion with management and the program administrator. We determined that the city's purchasing card program guide does not include any written direction regarding the process for an increased spending limit on a city purchasing card. The process that is currently followed is not documented and is inconsistent. Management agreed and implemented a new policy that has been inserted into the purchasing card program guide. We obtained the most recent version of the City of Sioux Falls purchasing card program guide, And we did verify that the policy that was recommended was added as stated in management's response. So that is considered implemented. And with that, that's all I have to report on that. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to take those as well.
Councilor Neitzer, question.
Thank you. Just as a reminder, so allocation, that is the act of taking an expensing a charge to a specific department, is that correct?
Correct, allocating it to the account in Munis.
Okay, so every time somebody uses a P card, do any of them, I guess the best way to say, does it know automatically for anybody? For example, like if one of our staff members uses their card, does it allocate it to the city council, or is that something that has to happen for every charge and they're unallocated?
Right, they go into an unallocated, that's the purpose of the reallocator, is to say where that charge needs to go within the department, within their budget.
I can address this too.
Sure.
Each card that's issued to an individual within the city, it has basically a department that it's assigned to. So in order to track the expenses in their actual time, so you can make sure that we're not, overspending our budget, it will be allocated to a specific account, but then the reallocators can go in and put it in its right general ledger category, essentially.
Okay, very good.
Are there any other questions at this point in time? Any questions on the phone? Okay, hearing none. Since this is a follow-up to recommendations to an audit that had been reported on previously, I do not believe it's necessary to take a vote on this particular item. So we are going to move on to item C, revised audit plan, and our audit manager, Shauna Nelson, will report on this.
Hello, everyone. Shauna Nelson, Internal Audit Manager. I wanted to present today a revised audit plan, and that's specifically based on the recent coronavirus disruptions and our available audit resources. When we presented this audit last year, December of 2020 for approval, we had stated that it was a very aggressive plan, and it really was key to have our full staff in order to execute this. So with the revised audit plan you have in front of you, I just kind of want to go through the different categories. We've identified the audits that are reported in fiscal year 2020. That's the payroll employee deductions, the purchasing card program, as well as the 2019 Bailey external audit. The current audits in progress are the bid tax, the ovations contract, the ASM management contract, the landfill licensing follow-up audit, and the fraud task force is an ongoing audit. The carryover audits that we anticipate to begin in fiscal year 2020 and reported in fiscal year 2021 would be the travel expenditures, the Midco Aquatic Center. And then the next line, we want to talk about the deferred audits. These are to be considered for future audits versus carrying it over. In the past, this body has just carried over any unfinished audits. And the ones that we have identified as deferred audits would be the 340B pharmacy contract, the capital expenditures, and the damage recovery billing process. And one of the reasons why we're considering deferring them versus carrying them over is with, like, this year, I think we've all identified that emerging risks are changing as we go. And so I am not 100% positive that the risks that we had seen in 2020 are the same high-level risks that we would want to audit for 2021. And with that, Councilor Kiley, if you want to address the external audit line.
Yes, we do have one external audit that is just getting underway, and I'm going to ask Mr. David Bixler to address this item.
David Bixler, Budget Analyst for the City Council. The effort to develop a request for proposal to audit the city's public parking fund began in February of 2020. After the initial meeting, I began working with purchasing to finalize the structure of the request for a proposal. And with it being early spring, collectively, we decided to hold off until after tax season. In early March, the pandemic emerged and the tax filing deadline was extended. Then the election was upcoming, then postponed, and it should be noted that with the election, it would be likely that a new audit chair would be selected. Following the postponed election, the city's budget adoption was underway. Now the effort is being revisited. Events have caused reconsideration of assumptions. The demonstrated performance used for modeling and forecasting has been impacted by recent events. Employees working from home, social distancing, and potentially selling 2 surface lots changes the view from the process when the process was first begun in February of 2020. This request for proposal is to request a risk assessment of the city's public parking enterprise fund to continue to be self-supporting. Parking fines and fees prescribed in Sioux Falls City Ordinance Section 41.005 are the funding source of this enterprise fund. The firm selected will be reviewing the city's projections of future financial performance, taking into account projected operating and maintenance expenses and the existing debt service obligations.
Thank you very much. And unless there's anything else that you need to present, Shauna, I would take any questions that any member of the committee would have on the revised audit plan at this point in time, or any comments. Okay.
This is Bucknerberg.
Yes, Dean.
I just have a question regarding one of the deferred audit lines. Wondering about capital expenditures, and so if that's a deferred item, what period of time would it cover? As an example, I'm thinking about, obviously we spend a lot of money on roads every year, but we also had the big parking ramp built. I think it was probably in 19 is when most of those costs were incurred. I'm just wondering about coverage in those prior periods of some of these major capital asset additions, if that's going to be included.
Shauna Nelson, Audit Manager. Dean, thanks for your question. As far as the deferred capital expenditure audit, one of the things that we really didn't identify was which operating counts, which programs, which funds we were going to audit at this time. So with that, it could be deferred. We're starting the process, the early stages of the 2021 audit plan and the development of that. And so that would be the time that this can come back up if anyone would like specific audits on these capital expenditures. We'll be talking about that in the next month or two. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, that's so we haven't decided what time frame either it would cover.
Not at this time. Usually when we start the preliminary objective process of the audit, if there's a specific, for example, project that any of these capital funds come from, you can identify which calendar year, fiscal year you'd like to have audited as well.
Okay. Thank you. I guess I would just, when that point comes up, I would think we would consider all major capital additions since the last time, they would have been looked at. They obviously wouldn't select them all, but would hope that they would have a chance to be selected. So that's my input there. Thank you.
Thank you, Dean. Councilor Neitzer.
Yeah, I think it would be valuable as the development of the next audit plan goes forward, if this committee would give perhaps the audit department maybe some direction. Is there a specific project we're interested in? We could pick the city center that was done a few years back. We could pick potentially the parking ramp as that's wrapping up. That's a separate issue, the construction of it, than the audit of the fund. Or maybe we say, let's take a major road project like T. Ellis Road that was almost $10 million, or Marion Road, or whatever it may be. and kind of give them, because capital expenditures is important, but it's such a hugely encompassing item, just so that there is some, I guess if we gave a bit of a more direction as to like, what are we trying to test or go for? So, and I'm not sure what the right answer is, I'm just throwing that out, so.
Any other questions? Thank you, Councilor Neisert. Any other questions or comments? And I would agree that capital expenditures is huge. I think we would need to be a little more specific in what we would like. So I think that is a good suggestion, that if we have any recommendations coming from this committee, that it would be very helpful for our internal auditors. Okay, last call for questions or comments. All right, I'd like to request a motion to recommend the amended audit plan
So
to the
moved.
City Council.
So moved, Neitzer.
Okay,
Second.
okay. Moved by Councilor Neitzer, seconded by Tony Gotch. A roll call vote, please.
Committee members Bucknerberg,
Yes.
Gotch. Yes. Grant,
Yeah.
Jensen. Yes. Riley,
Yes.
Neitzer,
Yes.
Sale. Absent.
Okay, and that was approved unanimously. Before we move on to item D, department updates, I meant to mention previously, I do like I like the audit highlights that were presented to the committee. And I just want to, as was stated previously, if you want to review the entire document, it is available online. So again, good job with the highlights. I appreciate that. Okay, now we will move on to department updates, and our audit manager, Shauna Nelson, will present.
Just a few updates for the department. We haven't met in a while. So currently we are in the process of hiring our open position for the auditor. The position closed last Thursday on September 24th. So I just kind of wanted to give you an update on that and where we're at. Another item for an update is that we have just been through a process for updating our website. Before, if you went to the city of Sioux Falls, we were under the city council, and that's the only place under resources that you were able to find us. So now we have our own internal audit department, as well as the link from the city council and the city clerk's webpage as well. So it's been overhauled. I'd recommend going to look at it and see if you have any other recommendations or suggestions for us that we can make. Like I said earlier, we are in the beginning stages of our 2021 audit plan and the development of that, as well as I've been in the early stages of contacting with Eide Bailey on the 2020 external audit, so I can get those times and dates on the calendar for them to present. As of right now, it's tentatively the middle of November is when they'll present their plan for their external audit. And with that, I don't have anything else.
All right, very good. Looks like we've already reached the end of our agenda. So anybody here for open discussion? I think the first item, Abby, kind of cleared out the house here. So anybody here for open discussion? Okay. See, none or now public input. Anybody here for public input? Also, crickets. All right, this meeting is adjourned.